All right, hello my lovely humans. Welcome back to my channel. Oh my goodness, wow, it's been a while, hey? It's been a hot minute since I made a sit-down YouTube video, but lately I've been thinking maybe that's what's needed. I'm continually making content on TikTok and Instagram, and if you're not following there, I will put the @names on the screen, but honestly, I feel like sometimes we just need to talk more in depth. We need to have a coffee together or a drink, sit down, cozy up, and just chat. For those of you who don't know, I just got diagnosed with autism. I just released a vlog, vlogging the whole entire experience that I will link below in the description of this video. A lot of people had questions. A lot of people want to know more about the whole process of the assessment, my traits and my characteristics of autism, what got me to this point now. Today we're going to talk about the assessment. How did I get diagnosed with autism? What started it? What was the process like for me? Because I think that a lot of people are very unsure of like how that process goes. So from someone who has experience, I can speak on that now. First of all, grab a little drink. Cheers. Daddy all day, every day. Absolutely. Ugh, you know when you make the coffee just right? Oh, and if I have not introduced you yet, that is Martha May, my fiddle leaf fig, and that is Her Majesty. She's a Majesty Palm. Okay. Because they are also involved in the video. So what started it all? Let's rewind. Somewhere in like mid to late 2023, Lauren and I were out getting ice cream somewhere, and we were sitting in the car eating our ice cream, and Lauren just like comes out and says it. They go, "Here, I think I have autism." And I was like, wait, what? Like what? What makes you think that? Unfortunately, the only preconceived notion I had about autism was the stereotypes of autism. The Sheldon Cooper, you know, I was born in 1999, growing up through the 2000s, it was very much one way to have autism. So I was not aware that like high masking individuals could exist. I didn't know even that you could mask your autism. So that was a big shock for me. Experiencing autism can also be a very internal experience. And oftentimes people like me, you can't tell from the outside that I have autism. Maybe now more that I'm unmasking. Anyways, going back to Lauren bringing this up to me, they said they started doing a lot of research. They started watching autistic creators. They starting to do research on autism and really resonating with the traits. And they were telling me some of the traits, and I was like, wait, babe, like I do those. Like that's me.
What do you mean?
So that started my whole deep dive into autism research. I had been doing research on autism for about 1.5 to 2 years until I got diagnosed. And I had self-realized as autistic. So self-diagnosed or self-realized, kind of same thing in my books. I identified myself as autistic way before I even got diagnosed because I knew. There's a lot of differing opinions on whether self-diagnosis is valid. If you ask me, it's 100% valid. You should never be questioning anyone who tells you that they're autistic. You should always be believing someone. You can't always see autism from the outside, so don't assume that you are the expert on autism and can diagnose someone. They're the master of their own brain. They're the only one living inside their brain, so they should be the only one to have authority to know whether or not they have autism. Of course, a diagnosis really helps, and a diagnosis really helped me. The reason I seek to diagnosis was mainly because I kept gaslighting myself. I kept telling myself,
you're making this up, it's all in your head.
I really wanted to address it, and I'm glad I did. But anyways, I started making autism content on TikTok, and I have a lot of content on autism, a whole playlist on my TikTok. So if you're not familiar with my content on there, I talk a lot about my autism while I was self-realized. So like I said, my inner critic just kept telling me like, you're making things up, you sound crazy. What if you just have anxiety? Anxiety and autism go hand in hand. It's very interwoven, but I've always wondered why my anxiety is just so much and also so specific, especially with social anxiety, missing social cues, not being able to be in crowds or go to parties very often or be in spaces that are too busy, too loud, too noisy, etc., etc. I never understood why I had problems with that, and I always just thought there was something wrong with me. Okay, anyways, I'm rambling so much. Last year, I struggled with a lot of burnout. I was like getting sick a lot. I couldn't do the stuff that I needed to do. And so I was like, you know what? Like I do want to get diagnosed with autism. The first thing I did, for context, I live in Toronto, Canada, the province of Ontario. We have a Ontario health insurance. We have quote unquote free health insurance, even though it doesn't cover everything, but it covers some things. So I made an appointment with my doctor in January 2025 to talk about, hey, I've done a lot of research on autism. I am like 99% sure I have autism. I would like to seek a diagnosis. And my doctor at first was kind of like,
Well, what makes you think you have autism?
my mind just went blank. Like, I made a TikTok on this.
I should have written them down, but I like blanked. I like mainly just talked about like the social anxiety and like the sensory stuff, and like I forgot like all the other things. And like she was like trying to say that maybe I just have anxiety and not autism. Just so scared of being invalidated. Like,
I felt like a little bit like caught off guard, and I kind of, my mind went blank in the moment. Anyways, long story short, my doctor was like, yes, I will put in a request to put you on the wait list for a free autism diagnosis. The institution that does autism diagnoses is called CAMH in Toronto. I got an email that I was on the wait list about a couple weeks later, and it was like, please note that this wait list is 2.5 years long. I would have to wait 2.5 years to get diagnosed with autism. I'm barely holding it together as it is. I need this right now. I knew that I needed this diagnosis sooner rather than later. The other option is to go private, meaning you hire a private psychologist to diagnose you, which costs
Money.
but I'm very, very lucky and grateful to have had the money to buy myself an autism assessment. You know, this is why I feel so strongly about self-diagnosis and like people telling people not to self-diagnose. It's like, well, some people literally don't have the money to pay for a diagnosis. And a lot of places in the world, there's no free option. A lot of places in the world, I've heard, you know, stories of people having to pay $20K to get their kid diagnosed with autism. Are you kidding me? Like, why is it that hard? Why are they making it that hard? Anyways, I'd made an Instagram story. I'm on the wait list for a free autism diagnosis, but it's gonna take 2.5 years. Ha ha ha. Like, what the fuck? This is so unreasonable. And one of my friend/acquaintances from the acting industry DM'd me. She said that she had just been diagnosed with autism through a private psychologist who she referred me to, and said she had a really good experience with them. She's also a high masking individual. I've met her before. I could not tell that she had autism, but she said recently my content has made her feel really like at home. And so that was like really validating for me to like have an actual diagnosed autistic person say, your content is really validating for me. So anyways, she referred me to this private psychology clinic, and I ended up paying $2,000 Canadian for everything. I got a report. Okay, I have my report right here. It's 12 pages. So I was able to do my sessions virtually, thank God, over Zoom, which is great. She's not based in Toronto. She's based in like an outskirt of Toronto. And I just figured it would be so much easier to just like participate from home, not have to leave my house, like kind of be cozy. I believe it was a month and a half later, I got an email saying, hey, a spot has opened up for an assessment. I literally cried that day. I was like, I'm so happy. So I said, yes, absolutely. Let's get this going. The assessment was for the week after. There was a lot of forms to fill out. I participated in 3 video sessions with the psychologist. First one was 2 hours, second one was 1 hour, and the feedback session was another hour. So my first session, we mainly focused on autism because that's what I came in for. And while she was talking to me, she saw like, I had to fill out like kind of like a family mental health history form. And a lot of my family members have other mental health issues. And so, you know, there's ADHD present in my family, there's OCD present in my family, etc. So she wanted to look for those as well. So she asked me, would you like me to look for everything? Like, do you want me to kind of do a very general mental health assessment and obviously focus on autism, but, you know, look for other things too? And I said, yes, please. Like, please give me the diagnoses. I'm ready. I was ready for her to say I have everything. I had a really good experience with her, honestly. She gave off such a like warm and comfortable presence that I was able to unmask and be myself on these assessment video calls with her. So I think she was really able to see like my true personality. I was stimming, I was playing with my hair, I was like rocking back and forth. I was obviously very nervous. I was averting my gaze, and I would go on and on about my special interest in plants. In between these sessions, I had to fill out a bunch of forms because she wanted to, you know, check for other things. ADHD, OCD, depression, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna tell you all the different self-reports that I had to fill out. I filled out the Autism Spectrum Quotient, the AQ, the Rietvo Autism Diagnostic Scale, the RADS-R. I don't like saying the Asperger because we all know he was a the empathy quotient, obsessive compulsive inventory, adult ADHD self-report, Toronto lexithymia scale, survey of autistic strengths, skills, and interests, the SASSY report, and then Lauren, my wife, also filled out a SASSY report for me. Patient health questionnaire, generalized anxiety disorder, social phobia inventory, depression, anxiety, stress scale, difficulties in emotional regulation scale, adverse childhood experiences questionnaire, comprehensive executive functioning inventory, and Lauren also filled out one of those for me. There was a lot of measures, as they call them, but they're kind of just like quizzes. So the ones that I obviously scored high on were the autism measures. I also scored high on the OCD inventory and the social phobia inventory. I also scored on the generalized anxiety disorder inventory. Those took a long time to fill out. I filled those out on my own time. I really like that she was really thorough in like just looking at all the possible factors. The second video call that I had with her was about my trauma history because I mentioned to her I do have trauma and I want to know if I have PTSD. Turns out she said that I didn't check off enough. I don't have a high enough score to be considered to have PTSD, but she said I do have trauma, obviously, and it would still be very important to do trauma therapy. In the assessments, I kind of had to go back to my birth, basically. She asked me a bunch of questions on like, what was my mom's birth like? Did she have a healthy birth with me? What was my early life like? What was my childhood like? What was my elementary school like? Kindergarten, high school like? I went through all of that and the changes that happened in my family. What was that like? How did I react to changes? Spoiler alert, not very well. A known autism trait is difficulty with change. So I had mentioned that I had a really hard time when my parents got divorced and I had to start going back and forth between houses. The assessments were heavy and I was exhausted afterwards, but I'm glad that I did it. And then finally, Thursday, May 8th, I had my feedback session. And in my feedback session, they basically go over the report, the findings in the report. Yes, they said that I do have autism and I do have illness anxiety disorder, which is basically like health anxiety, hypochondria, an extreme anxiety, fear about contracting an illness, getting sick. My OCD behaviors have always been around that one kind of subject. So that's why they said I don't have general OCD. I more so have very specific anxiety based on this one topic, which is illness anxiety. I did go to OCD like therapy when I was about 6 or 7. My parents took me to this place. It was like a 6-week program. They helped me with my compulsions because I was showing a lot of OCD. My psychologist actually said that therapy when I was young actually probably prevented me from further developing long-standing OCD, which kudos to my parents for taking me. Thank you. Getting both of those diagnoses, it was just like so validating. So it was so good to get that clarity. Of course I already knew, but it was just like so validating to have someone say, yes, you do struggle with these things. Thank you. So like I said, it cost me $2,000 Canadian to get my autism report, which is actually not bad. Not bad for compared to, I heard some other people's, what they had to pay for their autism assessment. That's not bad considering. So I'm really grateful that my acting friend introduced me to this psychologist because she was awesome, honestly. And I even referred Lauren to her as well. She's great. A lot of people ask me, what was it like emotionally going through this process? And first of all, I want to say it was exhausting. You're beat after each session because like you're talking about your traumas, you're talking about your life, you're unpacking all these things. It was kind of like a big therapy session. I know that other autism assessments are different because this psychologist mentioned that she doesn't like the gold standard way that they usually assess people, which is, they put the patient in a room and kind of observe them, but she said a lot of people actually escape diagnosis because they're not exhibiting, autism behaviors in that moment, in that time period that they are being observed. So that's why she said she prefers to do it this way, but she's still very thorough in her assessment. It was a good experience. It was a really good experience. All of the exhaustion, it was worth it, I believe. I had already been unpacking the fact that I'm autistic for the past almost 2 years, so it wasn't as big of a shock because I already knew I had autism. I will say though that I had to get over I had to address a lot of my darkness, a lot of my shadows, a lot of my traumas going through this experience. So, you know, if you are going through an autism assessment, make sure you have someone to talk to, make sure you have someone to like confide in, and make sure you're not alone during this time because it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot of emotions. I'm really grateful I had Lauren, also a self-realized autistic person, relating to me and being there for me. And it's also crazy the ripple effect it makes. Like, you know, one person getting diagnosed with autism just affects so many other people, and they start doing their own research and self-inquiry, and then maybe they get diagnosed, and then maybe their children get diagnosed, and maybe their mom gets diagnosed, and it's just kind of like a ripple effect. And it's really cool because it's just, people need to know what's up with their brain. Like, we can't be ignoring this anymore. We can't be brushing over specifically females with autism. Autism in females has been a relatively newer area of research, which is crazy. At first they thought that females couldn't even have autism, so we just happen to be better at masking or, you know, hiding our autism traits to the world. So, you know, the way that I experience my autism is mainly internal. You can't necessarily see it from the outside. So that's why I say never discredit anyone who self-identifies as autistic. They've probably done a lot of research. If you're actually autistic, you're gonna do the research because autism is gonna become a special interest of yours, which has become one of mine. And that's how I know so much about it. And that's how I knew that I am autistic. That's my 2 cents on that. Finally, at the end of the report, they gave me suggestions and recommendations on therapies, modalities, support networks that I could like join, participate in, etc. She said for me, dialectical behavior therapy would be a good option for me because I've done CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and it like helped a little bit, but not fully. So she said maybe dialectical behavioral therapy, hope I'm saying that right, would be better for me. She said also working with an occupational therapist might be helpful because I have trouble with interoception, which means like kind of like a disconnect between my mind and my body, like kind of sometimes not sure what's going on in my body. You know, I miss hunger cues, I sometimes miss thirst cues, you know, I'll go so long without peeing that all of a sudden I feel like my bladder's gonna burst because I've been holding in my pee, but I didn't know I had to pee for so long. So those are like typical things that autistic people experience. But she said that like my line of work is it's quite autism friendly. So she didn't really have anything to suggest for me in terms of like work accommodations because I've already made my whole career around accommodating myself and my neurodiversity. I'm in the right career for my type of brain. That was my autism assessment. It took from late March to early May to fully complete. It was all worth it. I'm really glad that I did it, and I hope that this gave some clarity on how an autism assessment goes. And I also had prepared with a lot of my own research, and I'd written down all my traits so that I had it to kind of like back me up in case at the assessment they asked me anything. It was mainly like, it wasn't me being like, so I have this trait and this trait and this trait. It was her asking me a question and me being like, yes, I experienced that. It happened more like that. Does that make sense? But I still recommend if you're going to go get an autism assessment, if you're autistic, you like preparing in advance, and you probably would benefit from making a list for yourself. Even a script might help, a list of your traits to kind of also just show yourself like, my mind isn't gonna go blank because I have the proof right here. I really hope that helped you. I'm gonna start making more autism content on here, long form, so subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments below what else you want me to talk about in terms of autism. I am very well versed on the subject because I've been doing research on it for 2 years, and I also have an autistic brain. So anyways, I hope you benefited from this, and I will see you guys in my next video. Mwah! Bye.